Hello and welcome to another behind the scenes video where I wanted to have a look at battery. So if you have if you have purchased Native Instruments packs previously, you may have accidentally, without realizing it, acquired battery, which is a great drum machine. If this is your sort of thing, like and subscribe is always appreciated, but let's get into it. So you may find that you've never really noticed this, but next to Native Instruments you've got contact 7. So often if you've got contact 7 you'll have battery 4 as well. If we load up a stereo instance, I'd probably do multi-channel. We'll come back to that. But when it opens up, there's nothing, but you've got kits on the left hand side, and you can also pick individual samples, and there are tons of them. Okay, so let's just quickly load up a kit by double clicking on it. So here's an 808 kick. You can click on, and they are all assigned to different notes automatically. You can see here we've got our rows and columns to lay them out, and loading a different one is just a matter of double clicking again. But these are all full kits. Now within all those kits there are the individual samples which you can pick here. Now why would you want to do that? Well, it's because if you want to create your own kit, this is what you are going to need. So you might go to the samples and think, right, I want some drums. I'm not going to choose a kick because you won't hear this if you're on a smartphone. Snare, you probably will. Now I could double click to add it to there, and I can either click that or press the key it's automatically assigned to. The other thing you could do is turn on this little button at the bottom, which is preview. So as I click or use the arrow key to scroll down, it auditions them for me. Now, the other button next to this is auto load. So if this is turned on and I see this is Rim Davis at the moment, if I click Rim Glitch, it automatically loads it into the cell I'm clicked on. So it's a quick way to load it. I tend to turn that off so I don't accidentally trigger it, which, you know, when you're in the middle of setting things up, that can quite easily happen. So we can pick some snares, then we can choose some hi-hats. Gonna need to open a hi-hat somewhere. See, if I hadn't have remembered to click to a different one there, well, that was quite nice. Okay, so this is basically how you build up your drum kit, and it's all about picking your favorite sounds, and obviously you can star the ones that you particularly like. that comes in a bit more useful if we just turn that off. So if I click the little star now, I only see the ones that I have selected as my favourites. So that's a useful little tip there. And that's sort of how you go about organising things. You open up Battery, you pick the different sounds, a bit like any other drum machine. But there is also some very clever stuff that you can do. Down in this bottom section here, you have control in main, effects, modulation. I think the first four, the master one is the one that controls Battery overall as an output. So it will affect all the different sounds that you have. So let's turn on the compressor. What sort? And you can see whichever, if I'm hitting that open hi-hat, it's hitting the compressor, as are all the others. So the master is your generic overall control to fine-tune everything, but the others you can control individual samples. So let's that's easier to hear because it's slightly longer. So that open hi-hat, I'm on the wrong one. Make sure you've selected the right sample, but I could shorten it. We could change the attack. We could engage the pitch envelope. And there's different settings here for how much the volume affects, how much the velocity affects the volume or the pitch. So depending on how hard I hit it, you can change the sampler engine to stretch mode. You can put it in vintage mode. You can emulate an MP60 sampler. We've got our filters. Let's jump to modulation, because this is quite interesting, because you can have different modulation controllers affecting different parameters. Here you can see 1 to 4. There's another 5 to 8 over here. So this is where you can start getting really inventive. If we put on the LFO and get it to control pan, is that quick enough? So now we've got a slight left to right wobble. We could change the tuning on it. Getting a bit spongy. And you've also got control over things like modulation envelope we could use instead. So loads of combinations you can do to individually affect, and you've got 2 LFOs, so they could control different parameters at the same time. So loads of fun to be had there. Right, we skipped over effects, so we can add things like saturation. That could be tape, classic drums. We can turn on lo-fi. So you can create an entire lo-fi kit from some basic setters, some basic settings. We've got an individual compressor. So in the master, we've got a compressor for the whole thing, but under effects, you've got a compressor that can just apply to an individual sound. So loads of fun to be had. So we looked at modulation, setup. Again, this is things like how your key velocity will affect the sound. I have to hit it harder now to make the louder sound. I think generally you'd leave that in the middle. You can have different effects triggered, so articulations, buzz, muted, speed roll. Flams, drags, three-stroke rough. So that's quite cool because you could allocate those to different. So if you had a snare drum, for example, you could have the normal hit and then you could have the other articulations next to it. You've got MIDI echo as an option. And you can humanize as well in terms of timing and sound, and then how much of that humanize is affected. Probably tend to avoid doing that, mainly because I'm probably using this to create more electronic sounding drum packs. I suppose that maybe that's why they called it battery. Who knows? And the other thing you can do, if for example I loaded up a drummer, so that's going to give us a generic beat. If I convert this to MIDI and stick that on my battery, it's going to sound absolutely rubbish because I haven't allocated the right sounds to the right instruments. But let's have a little play with that. So that's doing rim glitch, so that should be a kick. Actually, let's just do this with a whole kit. Okay, that one doesn't work. That's better. Ooh. You can hear, you know, you could have hours of fun playing around with this. Once you find a kit that you like, that's probably the way to go forward, is load up some kits, put some rhythms in, play around with it. But I thought it was interesting to have a look at that. I'll turn this into a much shorter Logic Pro quick tip about Battery 4, but I just thought it was interesting to show you around because a lot of people have got it, they just don't realize what it is and then sort of ignore it. Oh, the other thing I said I would show you is multi-output. So obviously I've done a video on multi-outputs for Contact, but Battery also has, we go in here, multi-output, so probably 16 stereo is probably the best one, because if we then look in the mixer, you get the little ability to add aux tracks. Let's just load up a kit, and what you can do is choose where the output goes. So we've got output to 1 and 2. So that's coming out here. If I want the snare to come out somewhere else, I've now got the option to do 3 and 4. So I've now got So that is now kick. That is snare. Everything else is going to come out of master at the moment because all the kick as it is. But that obviously now gives you the ability to add your own effects to, what would we stick on there? Well, an obvious one would be to go in and actually edit. Nice. So, as you can see, as you build up your knowledge and use the multiple outputs, you can have an entire drum kit spread out over your multiple tracks to have even more control on them. I think that's going to do it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're watching this around about the 8th of August, you may well be subscriber number 500. Who knows? But that's it. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.